You should have a printout of this set of notes. Please add 3 things to each slide. And when I talk about adding 3 things, what I generally mean is that you're going to expand on what's written on the notes themselves. You don't need to rewrite what is written on the notes, but certainly you could reword it, or you could use an example that I give, or extend some of the information beyond what I've given to you in the notes. Please wait until I'm done with each slide to add those 3 things, because that way you can sort of hear and plan for what your 3 things would be. Feel free to push pause and rewind on this recording. Okay, so the first thing is that we just don't know how humans began having governments. I mean, basically humans predate history. And what I mean by that is that history and the past are 2 different things. The past is the events that occurred. History is the story of the events that occurred. So the past is something that people don't make. The past is something that happens. That's the series of events. And history is something that people make when they write things down or they tell stories, etc. So human beings predate history, means that human beings have existed longer than our history that we're aware of today. Also, governments predate history. Some form of governments have existed throughout known human history. So the big question is, why the heck did people actually create governments? We're not entirely sure, but there are some theories. Different reasons that governments were created, or sort of different processes. They're called the origins of government theories. There may be confusion between theories of origins of government and the justifications of rule. Origins of government means like why people were attracted to the idea of a government and why it happened. Justification of rule is the leader telling the people who are following him or her, this is why you are following me. You can decide which of the following is which. Okay, go ahead and pause this video and add 3 things. All right, the first theory is called evolution theory. Evolution, if you recall from your science class, is through natural selection, aka choosing mates and death. A series of changes happens over thousands or millions of years. Evolution is very slow. So evolution is, giraffes used to not have long necks, but over a long period of time they got longer and longer necks. That's the idea of evolution. So this evolution is not the biology one, but rather it's an evolution of social structure. It's the evolution of people and societies. The idea of the main point of the evolution theory is that the government is a natural extension of the family. Basically, family units were something that were innate. That means that people were born with in the even before history, all the way back to the beginning of humankind. So in prehistoric clans, one family or one leader was typically the ruler over all of the other ones. In fact, this is probably still the way it is today. You probably have, in your family, you probably have sort of the boss, or you probably have a group of people who tell you what to do in your extended family. So through civilization, clans have united, but one ruler managed to continually maintain power and sort of be that group or that person who everybody else would look to. Okay, so you'd start off with cavemen, and then it would evolve to safety in numbers and sort of a village, or one person or a small group of people would be the natural leaders, and then eventually that would turn into the federal government. So the evolution theory is an idea that it's natural for the people to have a government. It's only normal in order to seek safety and seek comfort and seek sort of the benefits of being together. People created governments because that's how multiple people can live without chaos. Okay, go ahead and pause. The next theory is called the force theory. The force theory seems logical to a lot of people. Basically, ambitions are part of force theory. Governments were formed as a result of one group's conquest over another. Victorious group would impose its will upon other groups. You can see a lot of modern examples of this. And this is more of not necessarily why governments existed, but how governments became something that's a small clan and to gigantic countries and then gigantic empires. Warfare is an obvious example of the force theory. Economic influence is another, basically forcing, you could cut off trade or cut off the resources that one group has until they join your group. So in this theory, in this idea of how governments became, how governments existed, you'd have a small family or a clan, and it would evolve eventually into multiple families or clans, then using their will or their intelligence to create empires or to create bigger groups. Now, even though the Roman Empire is pretty big that you see there, people down in Egypt and Jerusalem and Spain, they weren't as controlled by Rome as we are today by Washington, D.C. So eventually this force theory has garnered more and more control over its people. Governments have garnered more and more control over their people. Okay, pause. The next is divine right theory. This is a theory that says God or a deity, some other deity, has given a person power. God wants people to be in a government. Rulers rule in the place of the deity on earth. They represent their deity, their God. Religion and government were often united. So the people have a natural tendency towards religion. It doesn't matter what part of the world, it doesn't matter what time period, how advanced or unadvanced civilizations are. They almost always have a religion. So this is something that's innate in human society and human sort of psyche, is this draw to religion. Early on, prehistoric clans, and then God would come in and sort of control people's ideas and thoughts, and eventually you would have people like in Europe. Most monarchies are resulted out of deities, or that would be at least their justification for rule. I am the leader because God put me here, so you need to listen to me. Eventually that would evolve to today, where multiple, millions and billions of people are religious in the world, but most governments themselves have separated from religion. Not all, but some. Go ahead and pause. All right, social contract theory. All right, this is sort of the big daddy, right? This is the final one here. This is the one that is more modern theory. This is the idea that governments are developed in a response to a chaotic world. You've probably heard me speak of this in the other slides. Basically, if you don't have governments, if you don't have rules, then it just becomes chaos. Big, intelligent, strong people can then dominate and impose their will on other people, and there's chaos and there's not rules. Imagine what it would be like if there were no traffic laws. I mean, that would be very bad. Imagine if how easy it could be to break into a home if there were no police officers. Imagine, just a more chaotic world where you're just where you're less safe. People then would see the benefits of giving a little to get a lot. People would stop at the stop signs. People would agree not to, beat up other people or steal their things in order to increase their own safety. In this theory, the idea is no matter how much control the government has, the people actually have agreed to follow those rules. Technically, when you're sitting in my classroom, you are agreeing to follow the rules. I cannot force you to do it. Maybe I could, but physically, but I'm not going to. So you have decided to follow my rules in order to get a grade, in order to reap the benefits of our education system, etc. So you have agreed. You are in a social contract with me and your parents. Of course, you could break that, or I could break that at any time, but people do the same thing with governments. They accept what the government does. Maybe they try to get away with some things or whatever, but mostly people do accept what the government does. And this begins a long time ago. the logic of people would set in, and before you know it, people would agree to listen to the king. People would agree to listen to those clans because they figured that it was the best way, the clan leaders, because they figured that it would be the best way to end the chaos that is sort of the natural world. Eventually, this would come into more formal institutions like we have today. Okay, pause. All right, your last assignment here is on the back of those notes. On page 8, it's only a single page in your textbook. You read about the different 4 theories of elites. Create a general statement and a symbol for each in its own box. Okay, 4 total boxes. Elite theories are essentially these theories that say, democracies are supposed to be one person, one vote. That political power is evenly distributed throughout the citizenship of the country. Elite theories are theories that say, hey, listen, that's not really true. That's great in the book, that's great in paper, but here's the reality of it. The reality of it is somebody with more money, for example, is going to have more political influence in the United States. There's a lot of different ways that they can do that. We can talk about that later in class. The reality of it is somebody who has sort of a larger social standing in the community has a larger political standing as well, larger political power. So these different elite theories are talking about who are the elites, who in the United States actually have the most power and control things. So there's 4 different theories. Now make sure when you read these and you create a general statement, you have to make this in your own words. You're not going to regurgitate. That's how you're going to show me that you understand it. If you write it in the words that you found in the book, that doesn't prove anything. So the different elite theories argue about who uses government for their advantage the most. The question that you're going to do in the 5th and the 6th box, okay, is if true, which of these theories is the most troubling to you and why? Basically, which theory would it be the worst if it were actually true in the United States? And then the second one is which is the least troubling and why? They're all sort of troubling. They're all sort of bothersome. They're all bad, to a degree. None of them are this perfect world where we're all equal. But which one could you sort of, if you had to pick one of those for it to be true in the United States, which would you, sort of like? And back up your opinion. Make sure you answer these questions and why. Okay, go ahead. This is the end of the video.